The grand hall of the council shimmered with polished arrogance. 42 species sat in concentric rings of power, glistening robes flowing like liquid authority, tentacles curling with smug rhythm, feathers preened in boredom. The central dais flickered to life with Earth's final transmission. A human woman standing still, voice level. This is not a warning. This is an acknowledgement. A pause followed. Not in fear. In confusion. Then High Chair Mark Velzer of the Turan Empire let out a rasping wheeze that passed for laughter. Acknowledgement of what? That they are finished? Chuckles rippled across the chamber like oil over water. Primitive fire sticks and radioactive tantrums, sighed the Plurn ambassador, sipping nutrient vapor through a golden siphon. Why did we even bother voting on extermination? This was mercy. Only one voice did not join the laughter. Fleet strategist Ralek of the Core Dominion leaned forward, eyes narrowed, mandibles twitching. Their silence. It's strange. Silence is surrender, barked Velzar. The Terrans simply bow before the inevitable. Let them watch their sky crack and know who rules the stars. They didn't plead, Ralek muttered. No threats, no begging, just acknowledgement. It was a small sentence, but it hung in the air like a storm front. Another voice from the far end chimed in with mockery laced in silk. Perhaps their translators malfunctioned, or perhaps they are too stupid to understand what comes. But Ralek's gaze remained, fixed on the static screen, Earth's sky behind the woman now flickering. Strategist? Velzar said coldly. Are you proposing we delay Operation Ashfall because of a tone? I'm proposing, Ralek replied slowly, that we have never dealt with a species who doesn't react. That silenced the room for a second longer than comfort allowed. An aide entered hurriedly, crystalline eyes wide. Counselors, we've lost communication with Vanguard Unit 9, and orbital readings over Earth just... The lights dimmed. The screen flickered again. This time, it was a ship, not sleek, not elegant, but impossibly large, black, silent, not a whisper from its engines, just presence, and then it blinked. The screen cut to black. Static hissed. A low tone began rising beneath it. Was that a weapon signature? Someone whispered. Velzar stood, his posture no longer bored. Get me eyes on that system. I want orbital control now. Deploy Second Fleet. The aide shook their head. Sir. Second Fleet never reported arrival. Ralek didn't move. He only said 6 words, cold as a comet's heart. They let us strike first. Why? The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was recognition of something missed, of something ancient, of something coming, and that was before Earth even responded. The Council war room pulsed with alerts. Dozens of holograms hovered mid-air, red, flickering, distorted. One by one, Council fleets blinked offline. No explosions. No distress calls, just silence. How can a vessel be this large and emit nothing? Ralek's voice cut through the static, fangs clenched. Velzar stood with rigid authority, but his tendrils quivered beneath the sleeves. It's a bluff, a projection. No mass scan confirms that thing even exists. Then how did it eclipse their sun? Ralek replied. Silence again. The kind that made noise feel like relief. The object, Earth's unmarked ship, moved without trails. No warp signature, no ripple in gravity. And yet it was. Every attempt to scan its structure failed. It responded to nothing. No hails, no threats, and, worst of all, it didn't fire. What species builds a ship and sends it alone into enemy territory, then does nothing? Ralek's voice lowered. What message is that? A screen lit up. Not from Earth, but from the outer rings of the Glixari colonies, one of the first places to launch the attack on Earth. A single transmission. Blurry. Rushed. A soldier's face, contorted in confusion. He wasn't shouting. He was whispering. It just sat there. No demand. No fire. but the stars around it, something bent. Then came the flicker. The soldier screamed, and the screen turned white. Was that a flash event? The Darnak minister asked, voice trembling. A nova? Ralek answered slowly. No, that was a directed atmospheric detonation. Controlled, focused, like a scalpel. But why not destroy the entire colony? Because they wanted witnesses. AVD Spike, one of the junior analysts, barely more. Then a hatchling stammered. Counselors, this Terran ship, it's named nothing. No registry. Not even markings. Our records have no match. It doesn't exist. That chilled the room more than any explosion, because in council culture, only one kind of ship flew without name or banner. A sentence. A ship meant to erase, not fight. Velzar barked. They're bluffing, escalate. I want dreadnoughts surrounding Earth's orbit. Bring the war to their soil. Sir, the aide interjected again, her voice cracking. The dreadnoughts have returned. They came back. Came back? Then deploy, not like that. They weren't supposed to return. And now, they won't respond to command. Every screen on the wall glitched once. Then, for exactly 6 seconds, a new signal took over. A human voice. Calm. No echo. Just direct. You struck Earth first. You studied our weapons, but you never studied our memory. Click. Silence again. Velzar opened his mouth, but the words didn't come. Ralek did speak, this time with clarity carved from fear. They didn't send a fleet. They sent a reminder. And across the far edge of council space, stars began to dim, one by one. The Ansari. Vanguard prided themselves on precision. No political fanfare, no declarations, just results. 5 ships, each carved from lunar ore and armed with enough firepower to glass a planet. The moment the Terran ship crossed into Sector Theta 9, they were launched. Engage at will, came the order, but the Terran vessel didn't react. No flares, no shields, just that same unbearable stillness. Commander Vex, a veteran of 17 planetary sieges, felt something he hadn't in years. Not fear, doubt. Begin scan. I want structure, core data, energy, readings, anything, silence. His second in command, a creature bred for logic, tapped again. There's nothing, sir. It's not blocking us, there's just nothing to read. The ship was there, but not. It loomed like a scar on space itself. Smooth, black. Designed not for intimidation, but dismissal. It didn't care if it was seen. That was the worst part. Open comms. Send warning pulse. Last chance. They sent it, and that's when the lights dimmed. Inside every Ansari ship, screens blinked. Controls flickered. Artificial gravity staggered. But still no attack came. Only a voice. Not over speakers. Inside their minds. You studied war. We studied silence. Vex froze. He tried to move. Tried to speak. Then he looked out his viewport. Just in time to see his fleet. Disappearing. Not exploding. Not torn apart, just gone. Each ship faded like ash in wind. All except his. The Terran ship rotated slowly, until its bow aligned with Velix's command deck. The moment it did, time seemed to hang. No weapons revealed, no energy buildup, just a single white light pulsing from its undercarriage. Like a heartbeat. You called us primitive. The words rang out again, not cruel, not mocking. Worse, they sounded disappointed. Vex dropped to one knee, chest heaving. His bones felt heavier. Why? He whispered. No reply. The Terran ship disengaged, not in retreat, but in judgment. It vanished without warp trails, leaving behind only a warped magnetic field and a commander who would never fight again. Back, in the council war hall, the feed went dark. Velzar clenched his fists. Report. Where are the other ships? The analyst didn't look up. Sir, Commander Vex is alive, but he isn't responsive. Explain. He keeps repeating one phrase. Over and over. What phrase? They didn't even need to fire, and Somewhere beyond the mapped sectors, Earth ship prepared to speak again, not in words, in consequences. The Council's panic wore a diplomatic mask. No one said the word retreat, but the air tasted like it. In hushed tones and twitching fingers, the decision was made. Send the envoy, a neutral ship, unarmed, white flag protocol. We'll show them we're civilized, Veljar insisted. They must see reason. Rallick didn't respond. He simply watched the pulse of the last transmission again. That heartbeat light. That absence of aggression that felt more terrifying than any weapon. The envoy ship Harmony launched within the hour. Polished silver curves. Broadcast beacons amplified. Every known peace dialect preloaded. Inside, Ambassador Tholma rehearsed, her opening line over and over, as if the right phrasing might unmake what had already begun. The Terran ship was waiting, unmoving, unchanged, unbothered. This is Ambassador Tholma of the Galactic Council. Her voice rang out over 1,000 frequencies. We acknowledge our prior conflict. We request parley. We extend the signal cut, not by interference, by response. The Terran vessel lit up, not weapons, just panels. Glowing, shifting. An ancient script none of the Council's databases could read. Translate that, Tholma whispered. A technician scrambled. Algorithms raced. The symbols stabilized into a single line. It read, "You still think this is about dialogue." Then, everything changed. No energy surge, no laser, just atmosphere. The interior of the envoy began to thicken. Air itself slowed. Lights elongated into streaks. The ship's crew moved in slow motion, but only the crew, not the Terran ship. It remained perfectly still, and then it spoke again. Only to Tholma. "We heard your first words," she gasped. The voice was inside her chest, not her ears. "We watched your vote." A pause. "And now, you're here with words?" Outside, a massive armature on the Terran hull unfolded. No weapon ports, no visible aim. Just a smooth, mirror-like surface, reflecting the stars. But the reflection wasn't accurate. It showed the Council chamber. Live. Every seated species. Every face. Watching this unfold. "Are you broadcasting this?" she whispered in horror. "We don't need to." The mirror rippled once, then went dark. Tholma looked down. Her hands were shaking. "What do you want from us?" The reply came colder than space itself. "We want nothing. You struck Earth, that was your choice. What follows is ours." And just like that, the ship vanished again. No flash, no warp. Just gone. Back in the Council hall, chaos erupted. Some shouted for war, others demanded retreat. But Rallick sat still, staring at the now black mirror that hovered silently in the room. He stood at last. "We thought they'd come to negotiate." He turned to Veljar. They didn't come to talk. And somewhere far beyond their charts, Earth's fleets began to wake up. Scout ship Virex 12 coasted through the Marnak expanse. Its sensors spread wide, its crew on edge. Their mission was simple: find the Terran fleet. But what they found was nothing. Not empty space, absence. The Navtech officer leaned over his screen, voice unsteady. "Captain, the Chitarn system's signal buoy isn't responding. Reset the ping," Captain Relkar said calmly. "Already did. 3 times. Still nothing." "That's impossible. Chitarn has 5 inhabited moons." A third officer turned, face pale. "Sir, we're in the system. I see the moons. I don't see the cities." The ship dropped out of pulse drive. View screens ignited. And then, nobody spoke. Because the moons were still there. Perfectly intact. No damage. No craters. No signs of attack, but also no lights. No movement. No heat signatures. Just cold, lifeless surface. "Scan for survivors," Relkar ordered. Barely breathing. Nothing. No biosigns. Not even plants. They couldn't have evacuated that fast. They didn't. And then the ship's long-range comms picked up a faint transmission. Looping. It was a child's voice. Alien. Soft. Not crying, just singing. No one recognized the language, but the melody carried something ancient, something final. "Captain," the engineer whispered, "this signal is bouncing off everything. It's not broadcasting, it's reflecting." "From what?" "From nothing. There's no source." One of the moon suddenly flickered, not visually but gravitationally. The ship's stabilizers lurched. The moon hadn't moved. Reality had. "Is this Terran tech?" someone asked. No one answered, because that question came too late. The Virex-12 turned slowly, preparing for retreat, only to find something waiting behind them. It wasn't the Terran ship. It was the impression of one, a negative shape, the kind light avoids, the kind space forgets to curve around. Just looking at it caused nausea. "We have to leave. Now." The ship twisted into pulse drive, fleeing at full velocity, but even hours later the singing continued, still bouncing, still without a source. Back in the Council's intelligence wing, they received the Virex's partial report. Veljar snarled, "Is it a new weapon? Gravity collapse? Radiation void?" Rallick studied the data again and again. Then he said something none of them expected. "It's a memory. They turned." "What?" "The Terrans didn't destroy Chitarn." "Then what happened?" "They removed it. From relevance. From existence. Not by killing. By forgetting." The Council fell silent. And for the first time, the idea took root that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't war. It was something worse. It was judgment. Deep beneath the Jaren capital, moon beyond access codes and surveillance layers, sat the Black Archive. Even the Council pretended it didn't exist. It was where knowledge went to be buried. Civilizations erased from memory. Experiments banned by law. And files that should never be opened. But desperation changes policy. Veljar authorized it himself. If Earth has risen this far, it means we missed something. Some technology. A jump point. A weapon. Rallick didn't reply. He simply watched. The guards break a seal that hadn't been touched in 3,000 cycles. The archive door opened with a low groan, as if the darkness inside objected to being disturbed. Inside, silence, and a single black cube. They brought it to the surface, under triple isolation. Even then, 2 of the handling agents refused to speak after transport. The data was decrypted, and on the screen appeared a human face. Not military, not political. A woman, mid-30s, calm, dressed plainly. Her voice was soft. "If you're watching, it means Earth didn't strike first." Veljar leaned in. "Is this a warning log? Why was it hidden?" But the woman didn't raise her voice. She only continued. "You came. You burned. You thought Earth would break." A flicker cut the screen. When it returned, she was standing in a field. Not destroyed, not scarred, just peaceful. Blue sky, wind through grass. "We studied your war records. All of them. We studied how your empires rose and collapsed. We found the same flaw. You think destruction is dominance, a beat past. You never asked what silence meant." Rallick spoke for the first time. "This isn't a strategy video, it's a philosophy," Veljar growled. "Waste of time." The screen shifted again. Now it showed stars, millions. And then slowly, sectors began fading, not exploding, just vanishing from the map, not destroyed, removed. "We don't conquer," the woman said. "We remember. Then, we choose what not to." The file ended. And before Veljar could shout for a second search, every screen in the chamber blinked. The black cube glowed once, and melted into vapor. Gone. No trace. No chemical residue. Rallick stood frozen. This wasn't a data file. What was it? It was a declaration. Across the Council's long-range sensors, dozens of silent anomalies appeared. Terran ships. Not in formation. Not marching toward conquest, just arriving. Each one in a system once tied to Earth's old history, each one silent, as if they weren't claiming territory, but revisiting memory. And this time, the galaxy wouldn't be forgiven. The Council's last broadcast was sent from orbit above Thalkar Prime. A fleet of 72 dreadnoughts formed the backdrop, a symbolic gesture, a final flex. Veljar stood at the podium, armor polished, voice amplified across thousands of systems. "Let this be clear," he declared. "We offered diplomacy. We showed restraint. But Earth has miscalculated. If they continue this path, we will erase them," he paused. "We hold the skies, we are the stars." For the first time in weeks, applause echoed through the chamber. A breath of false confidence. It lasted 11 minutes, because at minute 12, every dreadnought behind Veljar shut down. Simultaneously. No power, no lights, no explosions. Just gone. Weightless hulks adrift, no damage, no interference, just silence. Veljar turned, eyes wide. Get them back online. But no one could move, because above the crippled fleet, something appeared, not warped in, unveiled. A Terran ship, bigger than anything previously seen. Not a weapon, not a battleship, a monolith, matte black, unlabeled. Still, a city-sized object with no purpose that anyone could define. It didn't aim. It simply existed, and then it began. Not sound. Light. From the Terran vessel's hull, bands of light rippled outward, geometric, pulsing, ancient in rhythm, the kind of pattern that didn't communicate. It revealed. Each pulse sent waves through nearby systems, not damaging but shifting. Council satellites began broadcasting errors. Star charts corrupted. Navigation arrays scrambled. Entire planetary networks showed maps redrawn. Systems renamed, histories altered. Earth hadn't sent a fleet to fight. They had sent a vessel to rewrite. Inside the war hall, screens flickered. The Terran symbol now hovered beside the Council's own. No hacking. No breach, just presence. Rallic whispered, "This isn't an invasion." Veljar turned, fury shaking his voice. "Then what is it?" Rallic stared at the slow, perfect rhythm of the light. "It's proof." Of what? That they've already won. On the Terran ship, a final pattern pulsed. Simple. One phrase, displayed in every known language. "We remember everything. Do you?" The ship vanished again. No motion, no farewell. And behind it, 72 dreadnoughts remained adrift. Not destroyed. Humbled. Across the galaxy, people stopped. Not out of fear, but out of realization. Earth hadn't risen to power. They had waited. They were known as the Orolith Observers, record keepers. They did not vote, did not trade, did not fight. They simply watched. Since the dawn of galactic governance, the Orolith stood at the edges. No homeworld, known. No army ever seen, they recorded everything. But today they requested a meeting. Not a request, actually, a summons, delivered directly into the minds of every High Counselor. Veljar protested. "Of course. They are not a governing species. We do not take commands from archivists." But he still showed up, because everyone did. The chamber darkened as the Orolith envoy appeared, not through doors, but through space itself. A figure cloaked in shimmering static, faceless, yet somehow looking at them all. It didn't bow. It didn't greet. It spoke only one sentence. "You misunderstood, Earth." Silence followed. Then Veljar stood, still clinging to the illusion of control. "We do not need riddles. We need facts." "Why are they doing this?" The Orolith replied in a tone that cracked the chamber's acoustics. "Because they were never part of your story." Rallic leaned forward. "Explain." The static shimmered. "You thought Earth was late to the stars. that they were small and reactive. You assumed they feared you. A pause. The room held its breath. They feared themselves. A murmur passed through the council. What does that mean? Veljar asked. Earth did not rise slowly. They rose fast, too fast, so fast, in fact, that they chose to forget. Forget what? The Orolith's voice changed. Softer, almost reverent. Their first expansion, their first empire, their first mistake. A map appeared above the chamber, ancient, glowing with systems no longer charted. None bore any known council designations. Before your species crawled from oceans, the Orolith said, Earth reached the edges of what you now call the core spiral. They saw what power does, what it costs, and they made a choice. Rallick whispered. They left. The envoy nodded. And then, they erased themselves, so thoroughly even we could only watch from the outside. They folded time around memory, buried technology beneath oceans, silenced their own skies. Why, now? Veljar barked. Why return now? The answer was so simple it hurt. Because you struck them. A pause. Then the final blow. You didn't awaken a new enemy. You reawakened an old one. The envoy vanished. Not with drama, with finality. Back, in the chamber, the lights returned. But no one spoke. Because in the quiet that followed, the truth settled over them. Earth wasn't rising, it was returning. The planet Corvex 3 was known for its skies, bright green auroras, 3 moons, a trade hub for 17 species. It pulsed with life, until it didn't. It began with the satellites. One by one they blinked offline, no crash, no impact, just sudden blankness. By the time Council Command noticed, all outbound communications were cut, no traffic, no signals, and yet the people below kept moving. Farms ran, markets buzzed, children played in the streets. They had no idea they'd been severed from the galaxy. It was Rallick who sounded the alarm. We can't locate Corvex 3 on any updated star charts. It's right there, Veljar snapped, jabbing the coordinates. Thousands of ships travel through its lanes daily. The system map refreshed again. No Corvex, not destroyed, not damaged, just gone, as if it had never existed. Inside the war room, analysts tried to manually input coordinates. Access denied. Their own system rejected its presence. It's not deletion, one of them whispered. It's negation. The data wasn't removed. It never encoded. They pulled up live footage from one old trade vessel that hadn't updated its nav protocols. It still orbited Corvex. The video feed was peaceful. Too peaceful. Skies clear. People laughing. And in that stillness, something strange emerged. Every 31 seconds, the clouds above the capital formed a perfect circle. It held for 2 seconds, then vanished. No meteorological explanation, just a pattern. That's not weather, Rallick muttered. That's a mark, a message, repeated in nature. Earth wasn't responding with fleets. It was rewriting the rules of memory, and the people of Corvex? Still alive. Still breathing, but no longer seen. No trade ships came. No council reinforcements landed. Even if they tried, their vessels would reroute, systems refusing to acknowledge the planet's location. Veljar slammed his fist on the table. They're ghosting us. No, Rallick said softly. They're reminding us. Of what? That you don't need to destroy a world to end it. You just have to make the sky quiet. And somewhere, above 100 planets that once struck first, the clouds began to move in unnatural patterns, rhythmic, purposeful, almost breathing. Earth had not declared war, it had declared removal. Council Directive 000 Redline was simple: wipe the records, purge every trace of Earth from the central archives, locations, encounters, conflicts, names, dates. Remove Earth not just from the war, from history. Veljar stood before the assembly, voice stripped of arrogance. We cannot win against what we cannot track. If we sever all lines, perhaps they will retreat. Perhaps they will forget us too. Rallick said nothing. He watched the loading bar crawl across the master data core, sector by sector, line by line, delete, redact, erase. When the final file blinked out, the galaxy's collective memory reset. But then something happened. The systems didn't reboot to default. They changed, map clusters condensed, certain stars reclassified, entire factions repositioned as if they'd always existed somewhere else. A technician shouted from the corner, "Something's rewriting as we purge, like we're cleaning a space we never owned." Another screen flashed, a blank sector filled, itself in, unlabeled, vast and unfamiliar, but at its center sat a marker, one word. Origin. Velzar turned pale. "What is that?" "That isn't our designation." Rallick leaned closer. "It's not ours. It's theirs." All across the Council's vast network, the galaxy had been redrawn around a single truth. Not war. Not conquest. Correction. Systems realigned to an older architecture. One that matched nothing in current archives but everything from the Orolith's forbidden maps. History wasn't being erased. It was being restored. And Earth? Earth didn't show up on the new map. Not under Terran, not under human. No coordinates, no path, only a phrase buried in the metadata of the origin node. "We returned. You chose the rest. No threats, no farewell, no retaliation, just a finished sentence." Rallick stood as the chamber sat in stunned silence. He didn't look angry or afraid. He looked humbled. They were never trying to defeat us. Then what were they doing? Velzar whispered. Rallick exhaled, as if the weight of it all had finally landed. They were editing the galaxy. And outside the chamber, under new stars and unfamiliar constellations, hundreds of civilizations looked up, at skies they no longer recognized. The war was over, but the lesson was just beginning.